Contempt now is like having a garden of roses and weeds, but boy, there's about 95% weeds in that garden.
Even if it's just a bud that hasn't even blossomed, you're looking at that and you are bringing your awareness to that and you're recognizing that.
Here's the thing, if they've been living in a contemptuous dynamic in marriage, but they're still showing up, there's courage there, there's willpower there, there's hope in some shape there.
Recognizing in a moment of struggle, it's really important. What you're gifting your partner in that moment is a lifeline.
It's not your partner that's the enemy. It's the contempt that's in your own heart, your own nervous system is what you're knocking out. Welcome into the He Wants, She Wants Marriage podcast. In this episode, we're talking about contempt and the 3 phases to eradicate contempt from your marriage. Contempt is the number 1 highest, best predictor of divorce happening in marriage. A partner that is experiencing contempt in marriage has a much higher statistical risk of developing serious physical illness. The definition that we're using for contempt is a feeling of superiority or disdain over your partner. Contempt is really one of the mother of all screw-ups in marriage when you get to that point.
Yes, it is. It's that point where you don't see any potential anymore in your partner and in your relationship. And that's a really sad place to be in relationship. And we know because we've been there for years in our own relationship. And there's, how do we recognize it? There's different behaviors and signs that you can kind of spot in yourself to go, okay, that's where I am most of the time. And there's like use of sarcasm, use ways to just invalidate your partner's feelings and what your partner is saying, any body language that's dismissive, like eye rolling or, turning away, turning to the person next to you and go, oh, sure, she's going on and blabbering again, or oh, he's just talking about that again and again and again, that kind of use of dismissive humor. And also you can catch it. You may not be doing these things, but you may have a lot of thoughts that are along those lines in your head. So maybe you're just smiling at your partner, but inside you're going, whatever about what they're saying, or here they go again, or so they'll never get it. I'm the one that understands all of this. And you do it internally. So that's also a sign. And I know we've camped in that quite a bit actually in our relationship.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because in the preparation for this episode, the more obvious external signs, I know I did definitely have them at times, but the majority of the time I was contemptuous inside. I had that real sense of superiority. I'm right, you're wrong. That's superiority and disdain. It's like a batting away of your human experience. But it was because I was camping out in my mind. I know if I read this or heard this 6-7 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing it. You're contemptuous. It would have actually been contemptuous, but it was that hidden inner story. So it's a really important point for people to reflect upon.
Yes, I think my experience was more into the body language. There was a lot of it in my family. That's something that we do a lot. But the thoughts will still feed some degree of communication from your body that will transmit that message. And it's a message of there's no potential, there's no hope. We're really done here, although we're kind of sticking together for some reason.
Yeah, I feel the thoughts are a good entry point for picking up on your own contempt, because there's always this brain fuck I find that, when you're relating with your partner, it's like I have a video recording and an auditory recording of all your behaviors. So it's easier to pick up in your partner because you have the visual on it. The eye rolling, you see it and your body reacts to it. So you lock it in, but we don't catch your own eye rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You do it. You don't realize that you're doing it, and then it evokes contempt and more criticism, etc., for your partner. And that's an important thing to remind people of. This is episode number, it's 4 in the series, but we've been talking about criticism and defensiveness. They're the build up to contempt.
Mm-hmm.
So not to forget that there's this overall building up of relevance to this episode. Criticism, defensiveness leads to contempt.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump into, well, what's the solution to this? Clearly, it's one thing, the part of the solution for people listening in is recognizing that contempt is there live in their mind, in their marriage. But what next? In the building of that solution, I'd encourage people to look at your marriage early on and your marriage now in terms of a garden. Really to sort of oversimplify it. Contempt now is like having a garden of roses and weeds. But boy, there's about 95% weeds in that garden. There's like so many weeds, you don't even know if there's roses left. And if there are, they're so insignificant compared to the amount of weeds. And that's why there's no potential left. God, there's no potential in that garden left. If there's nothing but weeds in your marriage, why bother at that point? The solution we're going to be bringing, the tool, takes a discipline of the mind. But like, let's look at early days in marriage. Early days marriage, it's not all roses. I think anybody listening in, if you're really honest, there were weeds there. You didn't like everything about your partner, but we have this capacity in the beginning because it's fresh, because we've yet to establish those patterns of criticism and defensiveness that slowly but surely come, a few years into marriage. The busyness of life, the chores, the responsibilities, before that comes, it's like there's 70, 80, 90% roses. Things are cool, things are good, and hence getting down on one knee and going, hey, will you marry me? And partner saying, yes, let's do this. And there's a potential there. There's a hope and a potential that, hey, even if there's 10 or 20% or, there could be 30% weeds there, there's so much hope there. There are so many roses. We can deal with this, and this will only get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Life, busyness, kids, chores, walking your dog, responsibilities, parents getting older, etc., comes in, and we stop tending to the garden. And slowly but surely, the weeds come more and more. The roses get less and less vibrant. And at some point, you blink, 10 years, 20 years has went by, and there's contempt. There's way too many weeds there. So what do you do with that? Radical recognition is the act of placing all your awareness on the roses that are there. You stop looking at the weeds. They're there. Cool. The hope and the potential lies in feeding and nourishing the roses. And that's where radical recognition comes in, placing your full awareness there.
Yeah, that's the solution to it, the antidote to it. And there's 3 phases to it. Because at the beginning, it's very easy to go, oh, whatever amount of weeds that are there now, but sure, in the past, things went a certain way, or it was worse, or it was better, and compare, and then look at it and have no hope for the future. So instead, the first phase is starting from the present. It's like if there's one little tiny rose, even if it's just a bud that hasn't even blossomed, you're looking at that and you are bringing your awareness to that, and you're recognizing that out loud to your partner. That's key, out loud. Because if you do it in your head, you're leaving your partner in its contemptuous whatever thing it's going on. You just need to bring it and speak it. So how does that translate in everyday life? It's like, this can be very mundane things, very simple things. We always use the cup of coffee example. But you're bringing me a cup of coffee every morning. That could be just whatever, something that he's just doing, or it can actually be recognized as there's a love and a care behind that. And so there's a quality to the mundane action that you're seeing, and the intentional practice of recognizing in this present moment in your relationship the quality behind these mundane actions is where it all starts to gently heal the contempt in the relationship.
Yeah. And I know from my practice of this, in the beginning, there's quite an effort needed. because I had such a momentum, my awareness went straight to the negative interpretation. Bo, it's just you're making dinner. Oh, Bo, you're just doing whatever. You're telling the bedtime story to the girls. Well, you're their mom. You do that. But my awareness, the contempt, was batting away all the loving actions you were doing in and around the house, like it was just this thing. Yeah, but sure, of course. I mean, there was an incredible gravitational pull of taking you and all the beauty that you were bringing for granted. And in fact, because of that, you weren't smiling. Your tone of voice was harder, even when you were doing those things. So I bring that from my practice awareness. It took me a lot of effort to go, hey, feel the 95% pull of focusing on the weeds and go, well, I'm not going to speak to that, and dig really deep. And I think the part for me that makes sense is you're really looking in underneath the surface. It's not really, hey, I love that you made that meal. And that can be better than being indifferent. It's a damn good start. And that is perfectly okay. It's seeing the virtue of the person. It's seeing the human experience. It's seeing their emotionality. It's seeing the depth of what they're actually doing. And here's the thing, if they've been living in a contemptuous dynamic in marriage, but they're still showing up, there's courage there. There's willpower there. There's hope in some shape there. There's a flame. There's a lot of incredible characteristics that if you can be the partner and if you do this together, it's amazing to see what's happening in underneath the surface. And as you say, you explicitly tell your partner, don't keep this shit private. Tell them again and again and again.
It's a very powerful thing. If you've ever been at the receiving end of this, you know it, of being in a really difficult moment, apparently bad mood or whatever, but still turning up. Like I've had plenty of times off, I don't know, on a time that's challenging and whatever, and I'm still turning up and I'm still cooking the meal, or I'm still tending to our pets, or whatever it is, I'm still making you that coffee after lunch. And yeah, maybe I'm not making it with a smile because there's like an intensity in the moment. But in that moment, the power that as a partner you have to actually just slow down and recognize even just the fact that that person, that your partner is doing that is turning up despite that I know we mentioned the agreement that they're playing poorly well in that moment.
Yeah.
That is really magic. There's actually a power. It's great. You can recognize when they're smiling at you. You can recognize when they're giving you the coffee with a kiss. And of course, that's also beautiful. It nourishes and fuels that helpful and pleasant behavior. But recognizing in a moment of struggle, it's really important. What you're gifting your partner in that moment is a lifeline, literally. I know I've been in those moments with you, and it's like those for me were even more meaningful than when I'm doing it with a smile.
Yeah.
So that's the power of recognizing in the present what we're doing in the moment.
Yeah.
That opens to the second phase, which is reclaiming the past. So to actually start looking at, okay, that garden 20 years ago, there was a potential. And up until this point, we couldn't look at that lost potential because it was lost and there was pain with that. But now that we're able to recognize the present, we can look at that and actually go, okay, it's not lost potential. We can start looking at the progress that we've made and consciously bring the attention to that. And again, out loud, saying it, recognize, I see that we've come this far in the years that we've been together. I see that we've raised two beautiful daughters. I've seen, whatever that is that you can recognize.
It's really the act of becoming skillful as a storyteller. Because every person that's listening in, yourself, myself, we all have this moment-to-moment decision of how we're going to tell the story. If you tell it from the contempt part, taking you for granted, whatever, and I'm just going to pulsate here with all the reasons why I have to be defensive and criticize you and blah, blah, blah. Well, you're telling a story. But there's another option. You can take the pen, to be authentic, it comes from that root of to be the author. And what do? We tell the story of our lives and we create from the inside out, from our thinking first. And there's going to be a mosh pit of shit in there as well. So you got to, like, radical recognition, I believe that for me is the art of going, nah, not that, not that, not that, not that. Oh, hold on. That could be a nice thought to actually speak to. That tells the story in a nicer way. I know for sure in the past, as you were saying, I recognize at one point where our early days, which a part of me felt I should be happy with those thoughts. We had done the pilgrimage to Santiago. We did 35 days of walking hand in hand, which was on a level should have been so romantic. There was a point, I don't know, whatever number of years ago, when I recognized I feel off. I feel sadness. I feel grief. I feel ick. Sometimes I felt just raw anger because there was a part of me, the contemptuous part, going, I've suffered so much. I'm suffering in this relationship. So if that's the past that brought me to here, that's just suffering. That was the roots of my suffering, the building blocks of it. But there was this great thing to reclaim that story with you. When we got the present moment, then there was a part going, you know what? The pilgrimage to Santiago, there was some courage there. There was so much discipline there. There was so much willingness to actually show up, even though we were profoundly wounded, and we were planting seeds of hope despite arguments, etc. And what other memories like along the way? Can you resonate with that in your past?
I totally can. I know for years we couldn't look at our wedding album, which came at the end of the pilgrimage. We got married at the end. All I could see was the lost potential of that young girl, because like I was 23, you were 24, we were young. And seeing the lost, but like, gosh, there was so many hopes in there. Like that girl had so many hopes, had so much love to give, had so many aspirations, and what I've got now, it's all this contempt. So like there was, as you said, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, anger for sure that did come up. So we couldn't talk about it. We couldn't sit down and look at the wedding album together. It wasn't going to be a good experience. And like that, memories of the things that we tried to build together at the beginning, things that didn't actually work out in the end for lots of different reasons. But we were, we were working on the farm in Italy and building it together. I was pregnant with our first child. Again, so much potential, right? I mean, I was pregnant. More potential than that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The trip to Elba.
The famous trip to Elba.
And that was at the time one of the most precious experiences. And that was one of the key memories that gave me such pain that a decade and a half later, I couldn't find the joy.
Yeah.
But it was that practice of radical recognition going, hey, let's dig underneath the superficial, wounded, contemptuous thoughts that have just blackened that story. Let's just, let's pull the weeds off it, or maybe not pull the weeds, but let's tell the story again. Let's have the courage together to go back there. And we did it. And we're still doing it. We're still reclaiming that past.
Yeah.
I feel that's an important point for people listening in. The podcast episode, hey, it's 25, 30 minutes. It can make it seem like, oh yeah, here's a 3-phase practice. One cup of coffee together, boom, perfection, boom, progress from the past, and boom, the next, the potential. It's not like that. This is a muscle that you work all the time. But it was so beautiful now from yourself and myself doing that, and it's a way of life. I love, like, Elba Island. Those memories, they flood back. I feel hope, I feel happiness, I feel young, I feel alive, I feel gratitude. It was Anya there, and then Elena coming afterwards. There's so many memories. It's a reclaiming of the heroic story that yourself and myself have been on, made heroic by the amount of suffering we've went through, but we're still here. And I think that's that was important for me, and for people listening in. I think it's, if you're listening in to this podcast, you're still in the game. The champion move, I use this, maybe it's a masculine one with guys, but the greatest boxers, the undefeated champions, plenty of the bouts and the matches that they fought in, they lost, many rounds, But the champion move is to stay in the game to the point at which victory comes. The knockout, you're just there, Rocky style, with Apollo or whoever he does in the film.
In this case, we're knocking out contempt, not your partner.
Exactly. Exactly. You knock out contempt. That it's not your partner that's the enemy. It's the contempt that's in your own heart, your own nervous system is what you're knocking out.
Which opens to the third phase, which kind of closes the loop, because at this point, after you can reclaim your present by appreciating it and recognizing it again out loud. You can reclaim your past and seeing the progress you've made. Now you're reclaiming the potential for the future. And that is precious, because we said contempt is when you don't see potential anymore in your relationship and in your partners. If you can actually start looking at the future again and feeling that there's potential and actually say to your partner, I see that with what we're doing today, we're going to get to enjoy way more of whatever it is that you want to enjoy. I see that by doing this podcast, we're going to have way more success in the future, which is going to allow us to do all these things with our family and blah, blah, blah. So you start bringing that back. That is what fuels the relationship. I mean, that aspiration and potential for the future. Now, not only you're seeing the roses that are currently in your garden, but you're also seeing that, well, all those corners that were all covered on weeds, we can actually plant more roses. And we can have all these different varieties in it. So that's how it works when you go through the three phases. Of course, as you said, it's not an overnight thing. It takes time and commitment to do it.
I didn't have this in our pre-episode reflections, but it's bringing back the nerdy memory of me and research about rats. People might be shocked with this. I've brought it up in Be the Husband She Brags About. There was this classic study, not very nice at all, but it's all about hope. So in contempt, hope is the number one thing, and it comes in that third phase. But these poor rats, they put them in big tubs of water and they popped them in, and on average they drowned at the 17th minute. They lost hope and they went down. Horrible experiment, but there's a great hope. I don't want those rats to have died in vain. Where it got extremely interesting was, so the 17th minute was the mark that it went down. So at the 15th minute, they're just 2 minutes from exhaustion and they're going to drown. They take the rat out and they dry the rat. They give it just a couple of minutes respite and they pop it back in. Horrific as it is, but there's massive hope and potential for everybody listening is. The rat now has hope. The rat now knows, maybe I'll be taken out again. I can't get out, but maybe somebody will come. The rat can swim 240 times longer than the ones without hope. They go for, I think it's something like 60 hours. I forget, the maths it's bamboozling. So when you have some part of you that can know, well, you know what? Tomorrow might just be a nudge better than today. No matter how bad it is, and you will have built it with phase 1 and 2. Clearly you will have built and allowed the nervous system to come to have more hope. But that's why the potential, when you start as a couple telling the good story, going, hey, if we're looking to the future, if we're looking to tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years, we're going to tell the most beautiful, hopeful story imaginable. Dare I say, you become like the rats. You've way more energy. You've way more energy. You'll go through any of the tough times. You'll go through the conversations. You'll go through the old wounds that come up. You'll go through anything. And you will have to go through anything. That relentless willingness. But it's just one of those research that really gives the mathematical massive force so clearly of what hope brings and having a future worth fighting for.
Yes. And this is not like the hope, just hope and it's going to get better. You're intentionally, as you're saying, with phase 1 and phase 2, you're intentionally building it in. And so it's based on actual real things, because there are qualities in what your partner is doing. Because I know the very common objection to something like that is like, yeah, but sure, am I sugarcoating things? Am I just I'm recognizing what's not there. Well, if your partner has been making you coffee every day, or whatever your version of that is, if your partner has been tending to the kids with love every day, if you, whatever it is, gone to work every day to provide for you as a family or whatever, there is a quality in there. It's just that we don't focus, as you say, we focus on the weeds, so we don't see it. So you're not actually sugarcoating. You are bringing your attention to what serves you rather than what's only building disconnection. And ultimately, as we said, is the biggest predictor of divorce. So, I mean, you can keep feeding that, but that's where it's going. And we know, because that's where we were going, full speed ahead. So when you start feeding the other, you really start transforming, because you're bringing what's there. It's like that rose is buried in the weeds. All you're doing, you're just gonna move them aside, get rid of them, and that rose can bloom. But it's not that the rose wasn't there.
I think it's such an important point. I'm just sugarcoating. Anybody, and there's going to be a lot of people that will feel that. I don't want to just tell the good story. There's a lot of shit here that isn't working. So that needs to be recognized in this conversation. That is why this is only part 3 of it's the third, criticism and defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
They are the episodes, and if you haven't listened to them, go root them out now.
Yeah.
Because in criticism and defensiveness, the antidotes that we give in that is how you bring all of those topics that you really want to speak to that aren't the roses in the garden, they're the weeds. That's how you bring the awkward topics and you get back into flow with your human experience and your partner's human experience. The antidotes for criticism and defensiveness will give you all you need to be able to bring those awkward, unsugar-coated, uncensored things to the table. That's really important. So it's a special series, and it all works together.
Yeah.
It's just one part.
All the links are going to be in the description for all the parts of the series, so you can find them there.
Yeah. That has been awesome.
Yeah, I think that's all.
Here is to roses blooming in everybody's garden and our garden as well. And we'll deal with the weeds, and you guys will deal with the weeds also. It's part of the joy and beauty that it is to be in married life.
Mm-hmm.
For that, next episode, we're looking forward. We're going to be doing stonewalling.
Yes.
Keep an eye out. That's going to be the 4th pillar of the 4 horses of the marriage apocalypse. And so you're going to have the full, complete plan. So until that, next week, in the meantime, in marriage, dare to go get what you want.
Bye.
Bye, guys.